Hello students, welcome to my next lecture. Today we are going to talk about managing people in service sector. I Dr. Hun Prabhakar Devale welcome you all. Chapter objectives. This chapter is about how to motivate people, staff and customers to deliver great service. So we are going to learn why is service delivery a pressurized task, how can organization manage and motivate service providers, how can customers be managed and motivated. We'll start with the introduction. If your task operation managers, what is the activity that you spend most of the time and that gives them most of the problems? Almost all of them will tell you that it is managing the staff. Most service operations employ large number of staff, both customer facing, that is frontline employees, and back office employees who supports and does provide service to and customer facing staff. They may be, for example, customer service agents in bank, computer specialist staff, uh, helpline, or HR professionals providing recruitment and training services to the colleagues. From a customer perspective, the difference between the Medicore and an excellent experience lies more often than not with the person who serves them, their immediate point of contact. This person represents the organizations and embodies the service. The customer's perception of the service can be influenced by large extent by the way they view their interaction with them. It is possible for a service organization to invest in meticulous process design and expensive technology, but having failed to invest in its people, it will not deliver the right experience and the expected level of customer satisfaction. This is only the tip of the iceberg because in such situations, staff will not be motivated to own and improve the service processing to deliver required levels of operational quality and productivity. Managing service providers, that is frontline staff and customer facing employees, we use these terms interchangeably. It is an important task because these people individually and collectively have a crucial role. They are responsible for delivering service to their customers, whether internal or external. In most of the services, in the service providers, from a significant element of in the customer service experience. Frontline service staff represents the organization and the project its brand value to its customer. Employee represents a significant resource for many service businessmen and frequently represents the largest variable cost of the organization. The essence of professional services in particular lies in the skill, capability, and knowledge of the service providers. Professionals are the service in the sense that is these people a blend of their expertise and chemistry with the clients that the customer is buying. In additional service provider is the customer. In service organizations, customers often play an active part in the process of service delivery, that is co-production. So just like employees, they are an operational resource that need to be managed, selected, trained and controlled to do their job. So this particular chapter deals primarily with the leadership and motivation of the service staff and customers as they relate to service delivery, rather than addressing aspects of terms and conditions of employees' contracts. But first, there is need to understand why delivering service tends to be a pressurized task. So why is service delivery a pressurized task? Delivering the service minute after minute, day after day, year after year is not easy. For many people, this may be a rewarding, fulfilling, and enjoyable task. For others, it is, at best, a daily struggle and at worst, a nightmare. All service providers face two distinct but often equally difficult pressures: pressures from their managers, that is, organizational pressures, and pressures from their customers, that is, customer pressures. So we can see these pressures in this particular figure. So we'll talk about organizational pressures. The nature of the service task will represent challenges for the employees. Some tasks are inherently more successful than others. There are some challenging tasks faced by the staff in the housing association described in the particular case, where the staff face the large amount of desperate customers and do not have enough resources to keep them some of them off the street. Likewise, the surgeon who performs life-saving surgery may feel more anxiety than supermarket checkout employees. Since the consequences of mistakes are more serious, it has to be noted through that reaction of pressure is very much an individual response, which results in some fairly relaxed surgeons and some extremely tense checkout operators. This might seem a trivial point, but organizations that are often under pressure will try to recruit the individuals who are better equipped to deal with the stress and also try to manage the stressful situation better. The service design, the design of processes, and use of operational resources can have a significant impact on staff. For example, service engineers who work from home may well find their journey times to customers are reduced, but that they miss out the support of colleagues they might receive in working from a central location. Many organizations have a reception area for visitor staff by an employee who also operates the telephone switchboards. This creates an inevitable conflict as the employee must make a decision as to who to deal with next, the customer on the telephone or visitor in front of them. Almost all organizations set increasingly demanding performance targets. Because these targets are aimed at the performance improvement, they frequently conflict. For example, the call centers may have to meet a productivity target of average call handling time, that is ACHT, while maintaining operational service quality targets of accuracy and courtesy. This may not be always possible, particularly when demand outstrips the capacity and service organization enters the coping zone. Finally, reward and appraisal systems may be sources of pressures as staff struggle to maintain performance standards and enter maximum payments. What are customers' pressures? So customers bring another set of pressures. Some of the significant issues of for the providers resulting from the customer expectations include the contrast presence of customers in high contact services. Serving staff in restaurants are constantly on show and cannot relax. Customers like to think that the service transaction they receive is special for them. For the service employee, it is likely to be just one of many. Customers may have expectations of the service beyond the design specification based on experiences from other service providers. Some customers may have totally unrealistic expectations of the service delivery. The intensity of service encounter may contribute to pressures on the service providers. It is likely that the average customer at the marketplace checkout is less demanding than participants on a management training program. This is for two reasons. First, the transaction at supermarket is completed in a few minutes, whereas the training program might take place over several days. The extended contract time brings a degree of pressure, but probably more significant is meaning of this event for the customer. The management training program may represent a promotion activity for the participants or customer, and the resulting anxiety may be easily transferred from customer to provider. The mood of the customer is another major factor in this equation. Many leisure services have a built-in advantage here because customers are generally in a positive mood and may be cooperative with the service providers as a result. On the other hand side, dinners at special celebration meal in a restaurant may be more demanding as they want this occasion to go without any problems. At the other end of the scale, customers of the prison services may be less friendly and less cooperative. Finally, the competency of the customer may have a significant impact on the service provider. Regular airline passengers know the various steps of the check-in process and know where to find the right information. Infrequent flyers slows up the process because they do not know what to do and they ask more questions for clarifications. There is also a category of customer that poses yet more challenges for the service provider: the customer who think they know what to do but in reality do not and may cause significant disruptions as a result. Frontline service staff may find themselves playing a wide variety of roles. Some of these form part of their formal job description, while others are perhaps unexpected but must be dealt with some to some degree. So these are frontline services staff roles are order taker, advice giver, image maker, service deliver, complaint handler, therapist, trainer, and coach. So we'll just explain each one by one. So order taker. The frontline staff from the interface between customer and organization. Advice giver. The customer is often looking for inside knowledge as to what is particularly good or what is not worth purchasing. Then image maker, the brand is delivered by the service provider. Then service deliver, the front office staff may be the final point of contact for customers. Then complaint handler, the most effective point of the service recovery is at the point of delivery. Many formal complaints are dealt with here. Then therapist, for some of the customers, any human contact is an opportunity to offload problems and to seek support and advice. Then trainer, the frontline staff must be able to deal with both competent and incomplete customers. Lastly, coach. Many customers need confidence building and coaching to ensure a good service experience. Now this section has given a brief introduction to the issues regarding the diversity of the customers and their expectations of service providers. Clearly, these pressures are felt most immediately by service staff, each customer-facing roles, but are soon transmitted through the service to those in back-office activities and further on the suppliers and partners in the supply chain. Next is resultant issues for service providers. If not managed well, these frequently conflicting the forces of organizational and customer pressures result in problems of motivation and stress. For example, causing increased cost, damaged staff and poor service. Just see this particular figure. So, motivation. Many of us experience the pressures of continually trying to satisfy a group of people with conflicting demands for a relatively short period of time. This may give you the rush to as you work at superhuman rates, then balancing all your various needs. After a while, though, the enthusiastic may be placed as apathy, particularly if you feel that you are working harder than others, and the management does not seem to worry that you are overstretched. In some situations, the nature of the task itself may represent a challenge for employees' motivation. Some tasks are rather repetitive, frequently constrained by information system or other technology requirements, to improve productivity and consistency. This relative powerlessness may be a significant factor in poor employee morale. Role clarity and fit. This issue applies particularly to customer-facing roles and often related to situations where the service provider is torn between providing the service that the customer requires or adhering to the level of advice laid down. Even when there seems to be no logic in doing so, the service organization frequently report the problem of customer-facing staff becoming more aligned to customer needs than the organizational requirement. Although it might seem that it is good thing for staff to put the customer first, this is not the case when providing extraordinary service effectively costs money. Role fit is a particular problem for high volume services with many employees. The organization may have the correct headcount, but the personalities do not always match the roles. For example, in the call center on a shift that is difficult to for the staff, it may be that there are insufficient experienced agents to deal with the complex inquiries. Less experienced people must often do their best, attempting to satisfy the customer without the necessary skills or training. Needless to say, customers may not be happy and the employee may be demotivated as a result and may not be as willingly to help in future. Relationships. A continuing question for many service organizations is, do customers have a relationship with the organization or our customers are more influenced by a particular employee? The answer, as ever, it depends. For many professional service firms, the customer is loyal to an individual provider first and to the firm second. In customer services or consumer services, however, rapid staff turnover and shift patterns mean that the customer rarely encounters the same service twice. In this case, any relationship between employee and the customer is somewhat limited. Despite this, many customers seem to expect a degree of personalization that they would not experience in their everyday relationship. Risk. Most activities contain a degree of risk. Some service roles contain obvious element of risk, such as risk of violence encountered by officers or health professionals. For others, it may be more subtle, such as gradual build-up and abuse experienced by some school teachers. Risk can be taken to mean that which is encountered directly by the employee or some aspect of consequences for customer in the event of service failure. Again, some aspect of risk will be obvious, such as the political risk of train or plane crash, while others are more hidden, such as potential damage to a student's future career if they are not well taught. Lastly, stress. Stress is experienced where the requirements and challenges of the situation exceeds an individual's perception of their ability to meet them. As a result of their own abilities, the training provided, or organization's unhelpfulness to difficult systems, procedures or policies. Stress may also result from providers being overloaded or long period of time. The result of stress include robot-like service delivery, becoming overly focused on unimportant details and ill health. Potential outcomes: feeling of frustration, demotivation, lack of control, and stress can have serious consequences for the organization, the service provider, and the customer. For the organization, it can mean increased cost of cover for absent staff, high attention rates, and poor industrial relations. For the service provider, it can mean low morale, ill health, psychological damage, and of course, poor service delivery. Indeed, one common manifestation of stress is organizational induced or customer induced learned helplessness. A poor working environment induces the employees to display passive, maladaptive behaviors, for example, to act immaturely, uncertainly, and passively, and to be unhelpful to customers and managers. This learn help listeners can be so deeply ingrained that even when changes are made, this passive and maladaptive behavior may continue. The outcome from customers' point of view is poor service and uninterested and unhelpfulness staff. So, how can organization manage and motivate the service providers? You can pause the video and you can learn the diagram given. So, service operation managers must employ a range of approaches to help service providers deal with the negative aspect of being between the opposing pressures of organization and customers. You can look at this particular figure. These approaches to managing the motivating service providers includes providing the inspirational leadership, then harnessing the power of team and teamwork across the organization, clarifying the role of service providers, using script appropriately, defining and enabling appropriate level of employee discretion, establishing creative communication to employees, involving employees in performance improvement, and encouraging ownership of customers and processes. Applying these approaches and protecting employees from some of the pressures can lead to inspired and involved employees, responsive and responsible employees, process and customer ownership. Also, employee commitment and retention, enjoyable work, effective and efficient delivery system, business improvement. Providing inspirational leadership. When we discuss leadership with managers and executives, they usually point to the top of the organization. We point out that all managers at varying level of authority have a leadership role and need to develop and display leadership qualities. Leadership is the privilege to have responsibility to direct the actions of others in carrying out the purpose of the organization at varying level of authority with accountability for both successful and failed endeavors. Today, leading service organizations are good at developing institutional leadership, a strategic asset which needs developing and nurturing throughout the organization. Leadership can be categorized as transformational or transactional. The essential difference between the two, that is, transactional leader develop and project a vision of the future, having energy and influence to encourage others to contribute to this new direction. Transactional leadership, often described as the ability to deal with the day-to-day management of operations, is equally important in the effective running of a service organization. Transformational leadership is, as implied by the nature, is required at times of significant change. Many of the organizations with a reputation for increasing the quality of service delivery and the customer care have done so with the support and leadership of a chief executive who actively demonstrate their personal commitment. What is interesting about some similar leaders is that they are able to communicate a vision in such a way that it motivates the people in their organization to performance levels significantly greater than might have been expected. Now, according to the Sir Jackie Stewart, a famous racing car driver, said in his autobiography that leadership is not uh, dominating, It is about stimulating the people, creating an environment where they can grow, thrive, and succeed. Different situations and different setting may require different leadership quality. These qualities may include loyalty, then openness, passionate, responsibility, self-confidence, stamina, then timing, trusting, into the detail, in touch, empathy, desire, then decisiveness, dependability, credibility, courage, competitiveness, anticipation, and accountability. Warren Bannis lists out four competencies of great leader. First is management of attention, management of meaning, management of trust, and management of self. We'll just explain all these four. First, we start with management of attention. The ability of leader to capture the hearts or minds of the people through communicating a focus of commitment and compelling a vision is the management of attention. Management of meaning. This relates to the importance of bringing substance to the vision in such a way as to make it clear to those following. This is particularly important when dealing with the type of service and contains a high degree of intangibility. It is understandable that the people in the fast food restaurant may become overly focused on making and serving burgers or pizzas, but creating the customer experience requires rather than different focus, which can be provided by clear leadership. Then next is the management of trust. One of the key attributes of leaders is reliability. In the some way that customer value reliability or service delivery, employee looks to leaders to provide the same degree of security. They do not want message and programs that change on what seems like to them, but want to understand what has to be done well. Clearly lining up actions with words is a part of this attribute. Last is the management of self. Dennis says that great leaders know their strengths and weaknesses. More specifically, he hates that the best leaders do not seem to be easily defeated by mistakes and problems, nor do not start blaming their staff. In a service organization, this is particularly important. Enabling staff to listen to customer complaints and institute non-defensive recovery routines. Each of these attributes has particular application of to the leadership of service operations. Of course, not all service organizations are undergoing radical change at all times, although it may frequently feel like that. It is here the transactional leadership is relevant. Some writers have downplayed the importance of this style of leadership, equating it with a mandate from the management that is little more than routine administration of a well-defined concept and its associated processes. This is particularly dangerous in the context of service delivery, which depends to a large degree on the example of frontline leaders. These first-level managers, supervisors, or team leaders have the prime responsibility for providing day-to-day leadership of a service unit, which may make the essential difference between a robot-like service delivery and one that has life to it. Now, finally, individual employees may be capable of a form of service leadership as they exercise discretion over the service delivery process, potentially developing new ways of interacting with the customers or more productive procedures. This is aligned with developing what psychologists term as an internal locus of control. Most simply, the aim is to develop a sense of service process ownership in the hearts and minds of the employees. This theme is developed further in a later section on empowerment and employee discretion. One study which compared manager and employee perception of service leader interaction generated definitions of positive and negative leader behavior. The most significant position and positive behaviors in this study were formal recognition of service performance through reward or other recognition programs, then spontaneous informal recognition, positive praise and comment to superiors about the employees, lifting the employee spirit when under severe work pressure, helping employee with scheduling requests such as shift change to deal with a personal issue, then consulting and involvement in change, problem solving and service recovery effort. Next is harnessing the power of teams and team leaders. A critical design decision in the context to which opportunities for framework may be built into the service delivery process. Many of the total quality management, that is TQA program of the 1980s and 1990s evolved into teamwork programs as processes were redesigned to reflect the need to become more customer responsive. Several financial service organizations, for example, restructured their customer-facing activities in such a way that a team handles all transactions from sales to service. This frequently leads to increase in operational and customer perceived quality and productivity, as team members developed a greater ownership of a customer and delivery process. However, teams are not appropriate in all situations. For a group of individuals to become a team, there must be a real requirement for them to work together because their roles interrelate in the same way. In other words, if there is no obvious benefit for the individual to work together, they remain a group rather than a team. It is important to distinguish here between working in a group and working as a team. Many organizations may claim to be doing that latter, but unless there are real synergies created from the individual work together, we provide suggests that they are in fact simply working as a group of individuals. That said, we does not dismiss the value of encouraging the formation of social groups within service operations. The benefits of mutual support of co-workers, particularly in stressful customer-facing roles, cannot be overstated. Most of us recognize the impact of too many demands on our time and energy. Despite our best intention, the level of energy we devote to yet another request is diminished. There has been a considerable amount of research as to the impact of what we called as burnout on the motivation of service employees. In some circumstances, employees may be unable to cope up with the burnout, leading to unhelpful behavior with co-workers and with customers. As we have indicated, the impact of burnout can be anticipated and reduced by the developing the mutual support mechanism of a group, providing training to help employees deal with the difficult customers and building in period away from stressful roles. There are many benefits of having high performance teams that includes contemporary complementary skills and experience exceeds those of any one individual. This facilitates a more effective response to demand for innovation and customer service. When as a team member work together and overcome significant challenges, people build trust in others and in others' capabilities. Again, this builds towards a more effective service delivery system. Now we'll see the role of team leaders. Research into the role of team leaders had shown that the team leaders plays a critical role in the success of teams. And just like all service providers, they too feel squeezed between the pressure of the organization pushing for business results and the team members looking for support and care. This feeling is exacerbated in some of the organizations where the team members see the managers, but managers often see as a part of a team. The research identified six key attributes of a team leader. They should be approachable, empathetic, supportive, organized, knowledgeable about the role of the team members, and knowledgeable about the business. An interesting finding from this research was the importance of building the team of team leaders as well as the team themselves. Building the strong team can have one disadvantage, which is that the relationship within the team can be so strong that the team is reluctant to accept new members or to transfer members to other teams. This will reduce the flexibility to respond to fluctuations in workloads. A way of counteraddressing this effect is to ensure that the team or team leaders has the understanding to manage resources across the organization rather than be solely focused on their individual teams. Clarifying the roles of service providers. Most of the work more effectively when they have a clear understanding of their role, what is expected of them, and how they will be assessed. Research into effectiveness of the service encounters suggests that the role conflict and role ambiguity should be minimized if the customer-facing employees are to be motivated to provide good service. So there can be role conflict and role ambiguity. So we'll just discuss both these two. Role conflict. In many organizations, service providers may have a number of responsibility, yet it may be impossible to carry out each role simultaneously. An example is provided by the call center employees who is charged with reducing queue lengths and also with trying to persuade customers to purchase more services, a task that requires more time to be spent on each transaction. Role conflict may occur when the basic research design is in the error, as an example above, or when the demand of the job are in conflict with the individual personal view of how much status is conferred on the role. In the UK, for example, service jobs are often seen as rather demeaning, with perhaps some feeling that they are similar in nature to role of servants to the Lord of Manor. This feeling of inequality and lack of value may be detected when employees can customer sir or madam in somewhat sarcastic tone or voice. Then role ambiguity. Role ambiguity occurs when the personnel is unsure of the requirements of the role. Role ambiguity frequently occurs when the service employees perceive that there is a lack of clarity about guiding the philosophy or strategy of the organization. This may be result of poor leadership, both from senior management as well as from first-line supervisors. Both the role conflict and role ambiguity may occur in organization grows and develop. What was carried out by committed individuals in the early stage of organization's existence may be taken over by the people who have been recruited more recently. In the theory, this should be an opportunity to formalize the roles and responsibility, but this may be resisted since it may be felt to be contrary to entrepreneurial spirit of the original vision. Service designers must take into account these issues in order to manage all aspects of service delivery, but must be particular attention to the roles and customer facing employees. If these people are experiencing role stress of any nature, their ability to create the required service experience is highly to be significantly diminished. Next is using script appropriately. Many mass service organizations employ the use of scripts as a technique for providing both consistency and efficiency in the service delivery. In addition, as we shall discuss later, the scripting may also provide a sense of security for customers and employee alike. A familiar script may allow customer to relax because they understand the rules by which the encounters will be played out. We need to clarify here what we mean by script. The word script conjures up the idea of a precise set of words to be used in a service encounter. In the service management literature, it is used in a much broader way. A script is used to denote the precise specification of actions to be taken by the service staff in particular situation. Scripts creates procedures which helps employees to know what to do and what sequences in specific situation. Thus, like in the theaters, it may include directions about movement and positioning, mood and tone, the order in which to do things, and the words to be used. The words to be used may range from the tightly scripted to be improvisational. Now, Tanishq and Smith propose 11 functions for using script in the service delivery. All these are to assist the service employee to find out what the customer wants or needs, to control the customers, to establish historical routine that may be relevant to the service encounter, to facilitate control of workers, to legitimize the organizational actions, to serve as analogies, to facilitate organizational behavior, to provide a guide to behavior, to buffer or exacerbate role conflict, to provide a basis for evaluating behavior, to conserve cognitive capacity. Next part is defining and enabling appropriate levels of employees' discretion. It is neither desirable nor possible to create a script for every service situation, so most service organizations give some degree of discretion to their service providers. This lines up with a general trend in organizations to tap into brainpower and creativity of all the employees, and not exclusively the senior management team. A move to self-directed or semi-autonomous teams and a flatter organization may build on the need to give more people more autonomy in the workplace. We refer here to discretion rather than empowerment because most of the people are empowered. The critical question is how much discretion they have. It is generally accepted that giving clear indications of the limits of the employee's autonomy is more helpful than providing no guidance at all. Empowerment in this context means that these limits are extended for employees. An interesting aspect of empowering employees is, of course, that their managers are not to some extent uh, disempowered because they must step back from the activities they have previously undertaken. Kelly summarized the work of earlier writers. So there are three type of employees discretions, that is routine discretions, creative discretions, and deviant discretions. So there are also organizational styles and this particular figure. So this figure provides a framework for exploring some of the issues around developing or restricting the employee's discretion. The key dimensions are as follows. First is organizational style. Fluid organizations are those which must change their structure relative frequently. Project-based organizations such as consultancies may organize around the expertise. The consultant who is the expert provide the lead, possibly providing the directions for employees with greater seniority. As the client's needs shift, so many of the requirements for different skills, knowledge, asset change, prompting further changes in organizational structure and processes. These organizations will need to adapt processes for each situation, so we lie at the fluid end of the scale. Service operations that have clear operating procedures, such as retailers or insurance companies, will tend to operate at the rigid end of the scale. For financial services, this will enable them to operate efficiently, but also to ensure that risk management or compliance procedures are observed. Then, perceived individual employee discretion. This will be discussed in more detail below, but it is important to recognize that the issue is frequently how much discretion employees feel that they have or feel that they are capable of. So we'll discuss this form of employees point of from the employee's point of view. Some employees may not grow into the discretion they have been given. Others may feel that their freedom to act as has been clearly. This aspect might also be analyzed from the manager's perspective, and it is worth considering the issues arising from the differences of opinion between the managers and employees. Next is the complaint organization. The complaint organization is frequently found in high volume or low variety service operations. We have discussed that in a previous chapter. So complaint organizations frequently have following characteristics, that is displayed on PPT. Their focus is on consistent service delivery, often across multiple locations and with many serves many servers. Then such operations have a well-developed process documentation with training for employees as to how they should behave in each situation. Then high volumes and consistent processes lend themselves to automation and the employment to relatively low-cost labor. The management style employed in frequently somehow directive, often because the employees' turnover is such that the employees are relatively inexperienced. Also, performance measurement often relates to short-term indicators such as response times or orders taken. Now, the problem of our complete organization is therefore the front line, that is often junior employees, lack of the motivation or ownership of their service concept, or the customer to bring life to a rather mechanistic style of service delivery. The challenge of the service manager is to engender both the ownership and a spark of creativity in workforce that might otherwise appear like robots. In so doing, the aim is to change the emphasis from the complaint to the process ownership. The objective here is to for the employees to take the ownership for service delivery rather than to feel that it is imposed on them. Now, it can be some continuous improvements, but broadly the approaches utilized, they are like communication, involvement, celebration, and teamwork. So first we'll talk about communication. So good communication from management as to how well organization is performing and reason for further strategies. Also, it is useful to open lines of communication from customer facing employees to senior management. in order to facilitate the passage of invaluable customer feedback. Then involvement, inclusion in process involvement project is encouraged as and when possible. The aim here is to foster a sense of ownership of both processes and customer. Because employees have had a hand in process design, many service organizations have found that continuous improvement activities such as Kaizen or Six Sigma have been very beneficial in this area. Next is celebration. A major problem for the motivation of staff in customer-facing role is that they are frequently on the receiving end of complaints and abuse and rarely receive praise from customers. Indeed, some customer service functions are set up with the explicit task of dealing exclusively with complaints. Some service organizations counteract both the potential boredom and routine transactions and the deadening effect of dealing with the customer complaint by creating writers of the celebration of the process. Last is teamwork. Organizing customer facing staff into the teams may help engender the sense of purpose and also provide opportunities for the job rotation, support, and motivation. A major benefit of team in service delivery is that managers can give a team more routine discretion to make decisions in a range of prescribed areas such as job rotation. This reduces the perception of organization as big brother controlling every aspect of employees' work life. All these approaches have one thing in common: they create a sense that organizations value the contribution of even the most of the junior employees. Without this, it is unlikely that service encounters will be anything more than adequate and they will probably not build customer loyalty. The adaptive organization. The adaptive organization is more often found at very high variety and low volume end of the spectrum, which we described in the previous chapter capability organization. Many people in the professional services, for example, management consultant or legal advisor, might fit into this category. The characteristics of adaptive organizations are there are high degree of creative discretion in developing both product and processes. There is frequent dependency on the key individual skills and knowledge. There is resistance to the generation of standard processes, leading to inconsistency in the approach. Also, there is emphasis on the innovation. The management style is likely to facilitate focusing on ensuring that the skilled individuals are able to work to their full potential. Next is managing transactions. So this particular figure illustrates two common conditions that describe what may happen when an organization decides to increase or decrease the nature and amount of discretion given to the individual employee. So, complaint to adaptive, that is the annexure zone, and adaptive to complaint, that is the frustrated zone. So, complaint to adaptive, that is the anxious zone. So service organization may wish to increase the amount of discretion given to customer-facing employees. This is particularly relevant if strategy is to increase the range of the service operations available to the customer. In this case, individual service providers may be asked to take more decisions and to carry out a greater proportion of the service process. In many cases, of course, the implementation of this change is well planned and executed. Typically, this will involve investment in training and information system, but no matter how well this is managed, individual change in a different speed, which are detected by their individual personality and history. Thus, in this case, the individual employees are being moved from what might feel like a reasonably safe environment where they are provided with a clear structure and process to follow to one individual decision making is required. Adaptive to complaint, that is frustrated zone. So organization may want to restrict the degree of discretion or some or all their employees. So a common reason for this would be that consequences of actual or desired growth. Systems and procedures and standardize, reducing the opportunities for individuals to develop their own approach to service. This is particularly relevant to professional services seeking to provide consistent services to national or multinational business clients. So that we have seen. So next part is establishing effective communication to the employees. Many service providers do not appreciate being kept in the dark about the organization, its current activities, and the plans for the future. Indeed, many service providers appreciate being involved in the process of development and often have important contribution to make. So communication is the key to success and its importance is recognized by some outstanding organizations. So frame model consists of focus, articulate, model and engage. How can customers be managed and motivated? So in many service organizations, the customers also fulfill some provider roles. We would argue that just like the employees, managers need to understand how these temporary employees should be managed so that they fulfill the required roles and display the desired behaviors. So customer roles include the service provider, service specifier, quality inspector and trainer model or role model. So benefits of customer involvement includes inclusive resource productivity, customer control. Customer management issues. Since the customers are a significant component of service delivery, both as recipients and as co-producers of the service experience, it would seem to be sensible to manage the customers as if they are employees. So managing customer entails defining the customer competency, customer selection, customer training, motivation, and customer removal. So we are moving towards the last part, that is summary. So why is service delivery a pressurized task? So the organization is a source of pressure for the service employees, requiring them to deliver to certain level of quality and productivity. Customers are a source of potential pressures for all the service providers through unrealistic expectations, customer incompetency and anxiety. These pressures may lead to issues of motivation, poor customer relationship, anxiety and stress. How can organization manage and motivate the service providers? So clear leadership is essential for counteracting the pressures on service employees. Teams and team working can provide a powerful mechanism for support and also for building ownership of service processes. Well-designed service script serve a number of purposes in serving design, enabling consistency and providing useful prompt for employees. Good service is facilitated by reducing the role conflict and ambiguity and increasing the role clarity. Define the degree and type of discretion required for each role is essential and provides insight for the manager in dealing with operational transactions. How can customers be managed and motivated? Like employees, customers are often service providers. The key role taken by the customer includes service provider, service specifier, quality inspector, trainer, or role model. So we are having few discussion questions. Provide an example of a scripted response. Describe and discuss the advantages and disadvantages in using the script. What are the advantages and disadvantages using the teamwork in student assignment? Evaluate and assess your role as a customer in a supermarket, an internet-based travel agency, and university or college course. From your observation of managers in shoes and restaurant, what behavioral assets their staff to dealing more effectively with the pressures they experience and what actions increase these pressures. So with this, we stop the particular lesson. I wish you all the best for your next lecture and studies. Thank you.